text-to-voice synthesis provided by Vidnami. The British Bodkin. January 29, 2021 by Anna von Reitz. A bodkin is a needle of the kind used to sew canvas or leather. It's what British sailors used to mend sails, and what British blacksmiths used to sew their aprons. It is a useful tool that goes back to the Iron Age, when it was first fashioned. It undergirds the basics of livelihoods and trade. It is, in fact, one of the noblest implements of commerce ever devised. And it sits in the drawer unnoticed, and in the modern world seldom used. Yet it is still there. And that is the same sort of sturdy and relevant and useful tool that our land and soil jurisdiction represents, so long as we decide to do the work and make use of it. We still have the means to sew our breeches together. There are those who for their own self-interest would prefer it were otherwise, and who would rather we be totally dependent on their products and services, and no longer have access to actual bodkins. For obvious reasons, that would not be to the advantage of humankind, but it would be to the advantage of those engaged in producing virtual versions of nearly everything. Pretty soon they will have everyone believing that they can hammer in fence posts by manipulating a computer screen, and become unimaginably wealthy by manipulating digits on a virtual ledger. Those of us who insist on keeping our bodkins and sledgehammers on the ready are derided as Luddites, yet we are the only ones in the room with a grasp on history, physicality, and reason. Turn off the electricity for 10 minutes, and their world vanishes. Our world shoves into view. In the same way, they have endeavored to delude us into giving up who we are, our separate and glorious nations, our languages and our national currencies, our traditions, our religions, and everything else, even our sexes along with our bodkins, to make us ever increasingly dependent upon them and their products. Ever heard of cornering the market? Well, you are the ultimate market that Bill Gates and cronies are gunning for. Forget about controlling the commodities and instead focus on controlling the consumers of commodities. Then you can actually and factually control all the markets and the entire world. They took a first step toward this by registering us all as legal persons and wards of the Commonwealth, thereby misrepresenting who we actually are. Then they mischaracterized us some more and created all sorts of business enterprises and trusts used to benefit themselves in our names. Using this process, they even displaced and removed and deprived the lawful Queen of England of her standing, and replaced her with a cousin. They also encircled and deprived the Lord High Steward of his inheritance and true identity. In both cases, the servants registered them as wards of the Commonwealth, without standing to inherit all that is otherwise theirs by rights. So, not only is Joe Biden not your president, but the Queen who has ruled England since the 1950s hasn't ruled as Queen and actually wasn't in the proper line of inheritance. And by the way, Edward VIII, who was the only one of the British royals to stand up against this breach of trust, was illegally forced to abdicate. What may also be of great interest to our English readers is that Edward VIII did marry and did have 2 daughters, both of whom are still alive. It will also be of great comfort to learn that the Lord High Steward is still alive and kicking, and there are other expatriates who are true peers, who are also still alive. Against all odds, the British bodkin has been preserved, ready to mend the harms of an unreal world.